Serious. What are some of the creepiest declassified documents made available to the public? Story 1. There was a declassified Soviet program where the military tried to use rabbits to psychically communicate between submarines. It was based on the premise that a mother rabbit reacts strongly when one of its offspring is killed violently, even if the mother rabbit is miles or hundreds of miles away. The program involved keeping the mother rabbits at a land-based station and killing the baby rabbits in the submarine. Message content was determined by the frequency and the strength of the reaction from the mother rabbit, which was supposedly dependent on the violence of the death. The documents were declassified a while ago, but only translated in 2016. Just adopted a rabbit, this hits close to home. Did you get my message? Story 2. Project Pluto is pretty horrific. The proposed use for nuclear-powered ramjets would be to power a cruise missile called SLAM for Supersonic Low-Altitude Missile. In order to reach ramjet speed, it would be launched from the ground by a cluster of conventional rocket boosters. Once it reached cruising altitude and was far away from populated areas, the nuclear reactor would be made critical. Since nuclear power gave it almost unlimited range, the missile could cruise in circles over the ocean until ordered down to the deck for its supersonic dash to targets in the Soviet Union. The SLAM, as proposed, would carry a payload of many nuclear weapons to be dropped on multiple targets, making the cruise missile into an unmanned bomber. After delivering all its warheads, the missile could then spend weeks flying over populated areas at low altitudes, causing tremendous ground damage with its shockwave and fallout. When it finally lost enough power to fly and crash-landed, the engine would have a good chance of spewing deadly radiation for months to come. Damn, that's effed. The Russians have been developing hypersonic ramjet nuclear missiles like right now. I'm not a scientist, but they sound like they're pretty much indefensible. Well, I knew the thread would be a little unnerving to read from the title, but we're 2 stories in and I'm already feeling my anxiety spike. We'll see just how long I last. Story 3. Operation LAC biological warfare testing done on U.S. cities. Principally, the operation involved spraying large areas with zinc cadmium sulfide, which is very toxic. Many who were affected died of cancer, and the testing was never followed up on. Most of the neighborhood's genetic makeup was effed up for no reason, and no apologies were made. My mom told me one time she was living in California. They stated they were spraying to get rid of fruit flies/gnats. They woke up and all the fish in their tanks were bleeding out of their eyes, and she also had a miscarriage a week later. That story always stuck with me and made me wonder, what in the crap did I just read? The reason that insane conspiracy theories can so easily take root, because reality can be so much worse. So I was born in the Bay Area of California and was a small child when the spraying took place. I want to say it was in 1981 or 1982. My sister was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2000 at 23 years old. She passed away in 2013 after a very long fight. My father was also diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, his in 2004. He was able to beat it. I absolutely think it had to do with the spraying. It literally took the paint off our cars. Nasty, nasty stuff. F them. Story 4. The NSA ANT Catalog. It contains a list of capabilities which the NSA and other national security administrations have been in possession of and use for the purpose of cyber surveillance. The document was created in 2008 and was made public in 2013. The technology in this document is incredible and terrifying for the idea of privacy. If you think they don't know everything, they do. These devices are everywhere. Could be in any cable, any computer, any phone, anything. Nightstand, portable system that wirelessly installs Microsoft Windows. They went too far with this one. Dropout Jeep, a software implant for the Apple iPhone that utilizes modular mission applications to provide specific signet functionality. This functionality includes the ability to remotely push/pull files from the device, SMS retrieval, contact list retrieval, voicemail, geolocation, hot mic, camera capture, cell tower location, etc. Command, control, and data exfiltration can occur over SMS messaging or a GPRS data connection. All communications with the implant will be covert and encrypted. 8. Yep, they have better access to iPhones than we'll ever get. Don't get that false sense of security that your iPhone data is safe from the government. You know that feeling you get when you're driving perfectly safely, but a cop is behind you and so you feel anxious? Like, what if you accidentally are doing something wrong and they're going to pull you over? Well, after reading this, seems like I get to feel like that all the friggin' time. Cool. Story 5. There's a list somewhere on the web of the last words of inmates punished by death in Texas. Goodbye, warden. Holy F! Some of these statements cut off in the middle. Not hard to guess why. Thank you for using me. That dash on the end is clearly intentional. One ending with, it's burning. That one is really effing haunting. It's crazy. One of the guys was cut off when he tried to explain how he was being persecuted because of a cover-up. He was saying that an officer whom he had killed was in a fit of rage before he ran into him, inmate, and that he only killed the officer in self-defense. But the evidence to prove the officer's state of mind was not allowed in court, and therefore the jury did not have a fair perspective. They cut him off when he was trying to explain this. None of the other guys were cut off from what I've read so far. Crazy. Story 6. Operation Northwoods. Proposed false flag attacks against American civilians/targets carried out by the CIA and blamed on Cuba in 1962. Thankfully, JFK said F no and shut that crap down. Apparently, JFK even demoted the guy who proposed this on the spot. Thank God. Also, this means that this idea had to go through a long chain of command with many high-ranking people in the government agreeing to it. This is why many people believe in a 9/11 conspiracy. It surely wasn't the only time a plan of that nature was drafted. I've never been one to push the 9/11 was an inside job conspiracy, but I've met and heard enough people who reject it solely because the government would never do something like that, which is baffling to anyone who knows the least little bit about history. Life is cheap compared to money and power. Story 7. MK Ultra. The CIA performs illegal experiments on Americans to try to develop mind control. MK Ultra was never declassified, it was leaked, and the CIA destroyed old documents surrounding it. As all good governments should, and they let a Canadian doctor molest kids as part of it. I knew some of the stuff that happened, but damn, this is way too much. If I recall correctly, they would let some powerful rich pedos abuse kids, then blackmail them with the pictures to receive funds. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 8. Gay bomb. It was a weapon speculated by the USA in the 90s that, when dropped, would release pheromones which would make the enemy attracted to each other. Edit spelling. I love the idea that the enemy would just stop fighting a war and get their F on. I mean, shouldn't we all at least give it a try? Forgive the stupid question, but is there any evidence that something like this could actually work? Is there a good, reliable place to read about this? I'm actually curious. From what I understand, it wouldn't do anything, as humans are very much not pheromone-based. So, at most, it would confuse them as to what they got hit with, / why there is a strong, musky smell from it. Sarge, why does no man's land smell like Axe body spray? I really, truly hope there is a bar or nightclub somewhere in the world that claimed the name Gay Bomb. And let me tell you, if I weren't already in the perfect relationship with Madam Facts, I would definitely be going to the Gay Bomb to tangle with some soldiers. Story 9. Memo from Roger Boysjolly on zero-ring erosion months prior to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. He essentially predicted and forewarned that the rocket O-rings would fail if the shuttle launched in cold weather. Wasn't he blackballed for this, or coming public with it? My dad is an engineer and has an article about this in his office as a reminder of his obligation to do the right thing no matter the cost. I think he actually regretted not being more vocal about it because it haunted him for the rest of his life. As far as I know, he never hesitated to voice it, and someone who he tried to report this to simply didn't care. Story 10. The creepiest fact is that even the most horrible declassified files are just a small part of the documents that came to light. Too many facts went down the drain. Story 11. The various times that Nixon almost drunkenly started a nuclear war, but Henry Kissinger refused to act until he was sober. This happened multiple times. We could have been Fallout. Story 12. This FBI investigation file titled Animal Mutilation. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the media's attention was drawn to some anomalies taking place not only on American cattle farms, but all over the world. Cow corpses were being discovered in fields, missing organs with surgical holes in their sides with no blood. For a brief time, this was passed off as a strange coincidence, but eventually the public got so worked up that the FBI commissioned an investigation. 6 months and $45,000 later, they found nothing. Nothing. No trace of a person, machine, alien, anything. Everyone was left hanging, but strangely it died down. The reports of animal mutilation have simply stacked up since then, and to this day there have been an excess of 10,000. The removal of cow vulvas and bulldongs caused speculation that weirdos were involved. Didn't know dong was a technical term. Or weirdo. Wait, that's in the actual declassified document? Who wrote it? Me? Story 13. Operation Unthinkable, the plan for the UK and US to launch a surprise attack against the USSR at the end of World War II. UK, US, and what was left of Wehrmacht. They literally planned to use just defeated Germans to get the numbers they needed, but keep in mind that the military often has multiple plans for things that are not even remotely likely to happen. So it's more of an analysis of what would happen if we did this than an actual operation plan. Plan Red, for instance, was a plan for a war between the US and British Empire. There was also a plan for an invasion of Canada in the early 1900s in case the US sides with the Germans. US entering the war on the side of the UK-France was by no means a guarantee at the outbreak of World War I. Story 14. The WikiLeaks document about PRISM and about the smart device hacking methods along with how to set said devices into a false off mode. Every cell phone without a removable battery could easily / may already have this. Story 15. How about the Filmarillion? There was this user on 4chan called UTV who frequented the sports page and made lots of posts. Just normal posts too, nothing controversial. Anyway, he had a stalker known as the Archiver who would follow and comment on every single post of UTV. After a while, UTV would get sick of these comments and he'd tell him to get lost, but the Archiver would just respond to them too. Eventually, he started posting his own compilations of the interactions he had with UTV all over the sports page. His final post was him confessing that the people in his life found out about his obsession and he is now being monitored. But before he goes offline, he wanted to share his Filmarillion, a 92-page document of everything he had ever made to do with UTV, and he requested that it be for UTV's eyes only. Of course, that didn't stop people from opening it. Inside were post compilations of UTV's posts superimposed onto 3D models, extensive poems and sonnets, a detailed description of how their life together would be, and how UTV's funeral would pan out. I'm pretty sure there were real-life details about UTV in there as well. Upon release of the document, UTV's only response was, ? And he contacted the police and went into hiding. Appropriate response to find out someone wrote about their lives together and facts about your life is definitely ? That's creepy. Especially on 4chan. I always thought 4chan was a beacon of anonymity. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know much about 4chan, but I thought they referred to themselves as anonymous because there weren't usernames, or am I confusing two different things? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure I want an answer to that. Story 16. How the government made it illegal to expose the government for the illegal things they have done. When exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you are being ruled by criminals. Edward Snowden. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Story 17. The JFK assassination documents never fully being released as they kept getting pushed back. The documents themselves are creepy in the sense of how contradicting they are. But what makes it truly creepy is the full release keeps getting pushed back. They've got to be hiding something in there. Story 18. Anything involving Japan's Unit 731 during World War II. It was a military chemical and biological warfare division that experimented on POWs. Story 19. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was subjected to grueling, degrading psychological experiments while he was an underage student at Harvard. Wasn't he an MK Ultra? Story 20. The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the African American community. Had to read this in its entirety for a medical ethics class. The whole class was super effing depressing, but this study was the cherry on top of that effed up situations. Well, I've never heard of this one before, but I feel like I should look more into it. Judging by the name, it sounds about par for the course as far as actual American history. Story 21. The Pentagon Papers. They were fairly creepy back when they came out. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.